an innocent man gets framed and goes to jail for robbing the bank. Surprising everyone, he decides to rob the very same bank that he already went to jail for robbing, but this time he devises a brilliant plan to do it. The story begins on a highway in Buffalo, New York, where a young man named Henry works as a toll collector. He spends days and nights sitting in a booth with nothing to do, as most cars no longer travel that way. Despite his boring, meaningless job, Henry seems content with his life. He embraced the comforting stability of his routine and abandoned his dreams and ambitions long ago. Arriving at his suburban home after a night shift, Henry is met by his wife, Debbie. She pretends that everything is fine, but in reality, she is unhappy with their empty lives. Debbie says she wants children, but her husband changes the subject, unwilling to discuss the matter. Later that morning, Henry is visited by his old friend, Eddie. His buddy is drunk and throws up on the lawn. Even though the two haven't seen each other in years, Eddie invites himself into Henry's house as if they were best friends. His acquaintance is quite ill and keeps vomiting, so Debbie, being a nurse, provides him with medical care. Eddie asks Henry to replace him in a baseball game. It strikes Henry as odd that they would be playing baseball in late November. But despite the growing doubts about the shady figure from his past, he reluctantly agrees. They drive for some time, but then Eddie asks Henry to stop near a bank. Claiming he needs to get some cash from an ATM machine, he and his two associates leave the car and put on masks, intending to rob the bank. Henry notices the wires coming out of the dashboard and finds out that the car is stolen. By the time he finally realized that he is being played, it was already too late. The bank security guard, who went to a nearby cafe for coffee, hears a siren going off inside the bank. He sees Eddie and his accomplices running away. They flee on foot, leaving Henry to be arrested in the stolen car. The precinct detectives try to persuade the naive robber to give up the names of his accomplices who were inside the bank, but he refuses. For participating in the armed robbery, Henry is sentenced to 3 years in prison. He bids farewell to Debbie, who was there at the trial, crying for her husband. Arriving in prison, Henry meets his new cellmate, Max, an old charismatic conman who has been in and out of prison his whole life. Max shows him around the prison and accompanies him during lunch. Speaking to Henry, the old prisoner is disappointed to find out that his new cellmate has no dreams whatsoever. He encourages the younger man to change his life that clearly lacks any purpose or meaning. 6 months later, Debbie comes to visit Henry in prison. She tells him that she wants a divorce because she found another man and wants to start a family with him. Henry takes the bad news surprisingly well and wishes her happiness in her new life. A year passes. Henry is no longer the naive fool he was when he first arrived in prison, but a brutal man, hardened by the harsh realities of prison life. He spends time talking with other prisoners and Max. They have accepted him as equal despite his soft-spoken mannerisms and his refusal to admit that he robbed the bank. Talking about dreams and the purpose in life, Henry asks Max what's his dream. The old prisoner reveals that being here in prison is his dream. As strange as it may sound, Max prefers staying in prison. Being outside was always difficult for him, so at some point he asked himself why even bother getting out of prison. He even goes as far as physically threatening parole board members so that they wouldn't release him. Having served 18 months of his sentence, Henry is released early for good behavior. He goes back to the house that Debbie kept after the divorce and meets Joe, her new husband, who was also one of Eddie's accomplices during the robbery. Joe thanks Henry for not naming him or Eddie after he was arrested. In an awkward conversation, Henry finds out that the couple is expecting a baby. Joe offers Henry the chance to join him in his new business, selling Korean Tupperware, claiming he is going to make a fortune, but Henry refuses and leaves. After spending time with Max, Henry finds his purpose in life. Having done his time, he decides that he might as well do the crime, rob the bank that he already went to jail for robbing. Returning to the location, Henry looks closely at the building while walking toward it. Distracted by his thoughts, he walks into the road and gets hit by a car. An enraged woman gets out and starts cursing at him for not paying attention. The bank security guard approaches. It's the same man that arrested Henry during the robbery. Recognizing the robber, he helps him off the ground and brings him into a cafe. Henry wasn't hurt, so he insists there is no need for an ambulance. They agreed to forget the incident, so the guard and the woman leave. Henry goes to the bathroom and notices framed pictures on the wall. An old newspaper from the Prohibition era catches his attention. It reports on a police operation that unveiled a hidden tunnel used by bootleggers to smuggle alcohol in and out of the bank's vault. The passage ran from a nearby theater right into the bank vault. This gives Henry an idea to rob the bank through the tunnel. Leaving the cafe, he finds the Orpheum Theater. Looking around, he realizes there is no way to access the tunnel without breaking into the building. Henry goes to prison to visit Max. He tells his former cellmate about the plan and tries to convince him to file for parole as he needs help to plan the robbery. Max refuses at first because he wants to keep his life as it is, but Henry still hopes that he will reconsider. Refusing to give up on the idea, Henry goes to the theater. He watches actors rehearsing on stage and finds out that the woman who hit him with a car earlier is an actress. She has a fight with the director, who is not satisfied with her performance and leaves for a break. In the hallway, she meets Henry. He compliments her acting and asks questions about the play. The two go to a cafe and get acquainted. Her name is Julie. At his next parole hearing, Max surprises everyone by saying that he wants to leave prison. They see no reason keeping an old, nonviolent man inside, so he is granted parole. When Max is released, Henry meets him at the gate. Max asks where is his car. When Henry explains that he doesn't have a car, Max comically goes into a full-blown panic and begs the guards to let him back into prison. But Henry calms him down and takes him to the cafe to show him the newspaper. Max is astonished by the stupidity of his plan, pointing out that the tunnel was probably destroyed or sealed in the 80 years that followed this newspaper. The two men go to scout the bank, pretending to be customers who want to open an account. Using his charm and charisma, Max cleverly asks the manager questions about the vault in a not-too-obvious way, making sure it is in the same place as it was 80 years ago. Frank, the bank security guard, watches them closely as he suspects that Henry is planning another robbery. The wannabe robbers then go to the theater, pretending to be an old actor who used to perform here 30 years ago. Max asks Julie to let them in. She gives them a tour and shows the stage. Max talks to the manager, asking him questions about the famous rumor that during the Prohibition era, there was a bootlegging tunnel in this building. Unaware of his true intentions, the manager happily shows the old actor the room where the tunnel used to be, although it is now sealed by a wall. Max knocks on the wall and realizes that it's made out of drywall and paper, so it wouldn't be hard for them to crack it. Meanwhile, Henry and Julie talk about this theater's production of The Cherry Orchard, a famous play written by Anton Chekhov. They seem to develop feelings for each other, and Henry asks her out on a date before he and Max have to leave. Max had volunteered to work at the theater earlier. The two men intend to create a new entrance into the sealed tunnel, but they need to plan everything first. On their date, Julie confesses that she is leaving Buffalo after the play, intending to become a Hollywood actress. After dinner, they take a drive to look at a waterfall. During the conversation, Henry confesses to her that he was framed for the bank robbery, but now he is going to rob the bank for real. She takes the shocking news surprisingly well, and the two even laugh about it. Later, Henry helps Julie rehearse her lines, reading the part of her love interest in the play. She is surprised to find out that he is quite good at acting and encourages him to work on his delivery. In a burst of passion, they become intimate. In the morning, Henry and Julie visit Max. Henry reveals that he told her everything. Max doesn't approve of Henry making his new girlfriend aware of their plan, but he has no choice but to go along with it. Later at the theater, Max comes up with an idea. If Henry were to play one of the parts, they would have access to the building at any time, giving them an opportunity to go into the tunnel. The robbers are in luck because after a huge fight with the director, one of the actors quits the production. Max asks Julie to persuade the director to give Henry a chance. She reluctantly agrees. Derek, the play's eccentric director, mocks Henry's aspiration to be an actor, as he has neither training nor experience. However, he changes his mind once he sees the natural chemistry between Henry and Julie. They play lovers in the play, and it is very easy for them to perform since they actually are in love. The next day, Henry and Max come to the theater. Henry rehearses with the other actors. Once he is done, he joins Max in the room where the tunnel is supposed to be. The room that Henry specifically requested to be his dressing room so that nobody would enter the room without his permission. They smash a hole in a plaster wall and find the hidden tunnel. Henry uses a hammer to widen the entrance. Once inside, they find a huge pile of dirt blocking their way. Unable to do all the work of removing it by themselves, they realize they need to hire more people for the robbery. Henry and Max go to a bar where they find Joe. He is desperate because his Tupperware business failed miserably, and now he has no money with a baby on the way. Using his dire situation, they persuade him to participate in the robbery. They take him to the theater and explain the plan in the tunnel. The three men start working. Day after day, Henry rehearses with Julie while Max and Joe dig the dirt out of the tunnel. They cover the entrance with a closet so that no one accidentally discovers the upcoming robbery. They put the dirt in bags, lift it to the roof with a rope mechanism they constructed, and dump it there. The work is slow and tedious, but the team is enthusiastic. One day after work, the three men walk out of the theater late at night. They are confronted by Frank, who has been waiting for them in an alley. He knows they are planning a robbery and says he wants to join. Stunned by the unexpected development, the robbers take a drive with him in a car. Frank tells the group that once a month, the bank receives a large infusion of cash from other branches. On that day, there would be about $12 million in the vault. He is willing to provide them with the date of the cash delivery and help them with the alarms. The robbers question his motives, fearing he's trying to set them up. But Frank convinces them by revealing that years ago his wife was sick and the bank refused to loan him money for her medical treatment. She died shortly afterwards. Sometime later, Eddie comes to Henry's apartment and rudely lets himself in. Being a degenerate alcoholic, Joe told him all about the robbery, unable to keep a secret. Eddie insists on participating and starts threatening them with a gun. Max is enraged by his boldness, but Henry stops him from attacking Eddie. The group reluctantly allows Eddie to join the robbery. Returning to the theater, Henry finds out that the play is opening on the same day that they planned the robbery. He wants to postpone the heist so that he can play his part and avoid hurting Julie's feelings. But Max brings him back to his senses, reminding him that on other days there wouldn't be nearly as much money in there. They can't wait because the risk is already high as it is. Henry informs Julie about the unfortunate development. She is understandably furious about what looks like a betrayal of her trust. She needed this play to move her career forward, and now it will be ruined. Henry suggests that she moves to California with him after the robbery, but Julie tells him she never wants to see him again and throws him out. On the night of the robbery, Henry, Julie, and the other actors assemble with the director before the performance. Henry will perform in the first part of the play and depart to execute the robbery during one of the intermissions. The play begins with a dialogue between Henry's character and the maid. Meanwhile, at the bank, Frank watches the armored truck arriving. He accompanies bank security guards while they deliver a large sum of cash into the vault. Frank sends the robbers a message to proceed. Instructed by Frank, Max opens an electrical panel and disrupts the emergency power in the vault, while Frank shuts down the alarm. In the play, Henry and Julie start improvising, clearly influenced by their conflicting emotions. Max goes back to the tunnel and tells Eddie and Joe to proceed. Now that the alarm is off, they start drilling the ceiling as the vault is directly above them. Once they make a large enough hole, Eddie uses a blowtorch to burn through the concrete. Henry joins the rest just when the hole to the vault is finished. Henry enters the hole and immediately finds stacks of cash. He goes back to the play while the others bring the money to the dressing room. Suddenly, Eddie pulls a gun on Max, intending to take all the money for himself. He knocks Max to the ground, revealing to Henry and Max that he never intended to share the reward and simply use them to get to the money. Eddie tells Joe to take stacks of cash to the car. In a surprising twist, Joe turns against him and bites his hand. Eddie opens fire, shooting Henry in the leg. Max grabs the gun and beats Eddie with it, knocking him unconscious on the ground. Despite the injury, Henry goes back to finish the play. Max and Joe restrain Eddie and leave him in the tunnel to be arrested by the police. During the intermission, the three men quietly bring the cash to their car and leave the theater undisturbed. They drive for some time when suddenly Henry tells Joe to stop. He bids farewell to Max and leaves on foot while the other two drive away with the money. Struggling to walk because of his injury, Henry rushes back to the theater intending to finish the play. He arrives through the main door and goes past the audience, yelling for Julie to stop. He starts improvising, telling her that he can't live without her and that he loves her. The audience and production crew are shocked by the unscripted scene but still watch it with interest. Henry begs her to meet him in Moscow. In reality, he means California. Under pressure from the audience, Julie reluctantly agrees. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Movie Fist channel.